Hello, Psych 201 students. We are now beginning Unit 2, which includes chapters 4, 5, and 6. So we will begin covering chapter 4, How Children Develop, Nature Through Nurture. In this chapter, I will have 5 videos, one for each of these learning questions that you see here. And so we will begin in this first video with a very short look at what is the difference between molecular genetics and behavioral genetics. So let's start with, how do we study genes and behavior? And I'm just going to read this to start. We have left behind the era of nature versus nurture, which was explored for, philosophically for hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, it's dated back to Plato and Socrates, and so it's been debated for centuries, and we've kind of left that versus behind, and now we understand developmental processes as nature through nurture, with both genes and environment in constant interaction. So remember, nature refers to your genetics, and nurture refers to your environmental influences. And we now know that you can't just say that one or the other is more important or affects you, in greater ways, because they're always operating together. You can't really even separate them. Although we will see that, certain traits or behaviors, one of them may influence us more than the other. So today we are most interested in understanding how genes are expressed through the constant interaction with the environment. How are your genes expressed as they constantly interact with the environment? And the environment does things like enhance or turn on certain genes. The environment may cause other genes to turn off or diminish their role. One distinction we need to make is between behavioral genetics and molecular genetics, and we will talk about each in this chapter. Behavioral genetics is about determining the degree of genetic basis for a behavior, trait, or an ability through studies of twins, adopted children, and also family studies. So behavioral genetics tries to look at, is nature or is nurture more responsible for certain behaviors or traits or abilities? And then twins are critically important for these behavioral genetic studies. We will look at behavioral genetics in the last couple of videos. We're going to be starting by looking at molecular genetics. And this is more about, as it says here, the identification of particular genes to discover how these genes work within the cell. So molecular genetics we're going to look at, how do genes work? How do genes and chromosomes affect you? And so we'll get into looking at chromosomes and genes and DNA and genetic disorders and the nature of inheritance and things like that. And so it's really about how your genetics affect you, whereas behavioral genetics is more about the interaction of nature and nurture and determining which is more important for certain behaviors and traits. Okay, so the next couple of videos we'll be looking at molecular genetics.